Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Road to PyCon live series. My name is Wasil Burema. I'm the lead organizer of PyCon Togo 2025. Today, we have an absolute honor and a legendary guest with us. Please, guys, let's join me to welcome Sebastián Ramírez, the creator of FastAPI and Typo, and now he's building the FastAPI Cloud. Guys, uh, Sebastián is here. Hello, Sebastián. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hello, thank you very much for inviting me. Hello, everyone.
Yeah, you are welcome. And the community is on fire now. So before we dive deeper into the main point, I want to remind everyone that this live series is part of our crowdfunding initiative to bring 100 students around the continent to our main conference, which will be on August very soon. So coming back to Sebastian, let's go straight to the point. Sebastian, we want to start from the beginning. The first thing,
I lost the
the
sound for a second.
powerful tools like Django, Flask, and you. It didn't stop you building fast API. So, we want to understand which problem were you trying to solve with fast API?
Yeah, so, like at the beginning, I was actually avoiding creating a new tool. I didn't think that there was a need for a new tool. I was thinking that there would probably be a framework or some other combination of tools that will solve the problems that I wanted to solve. So what I did was try a bunch of different frameworks, like almost all of them, and try to see how to solve the problems that I wanted to solve, mainly around building APIs. So I tried Flask, I tried Django, I tried a bunch of additional smaller frameworks. I also tried some frameworks in other programming languages, in like TypeScript and things like that. I while I was doing that, I was trying to. So the thing is, I am from Colombia in South America. That's why the accent. But I live in Berlin, Germany. But then when I was doing that, I was working in a company in Colombia, and we were doing. It was like sort of a small boutique data science, let's say, consultancy. So we were building a bunch of different products for different clients that, in many cases, had similar concepts. So it required like building relatively similar apps. They all needed to have some type of API. In many cases, but not in all the cases, they needed to have users or some connection with a database, but sometimes it was a NoSQL database, and in many cases related to handling data and machine learning. So that was the type of use case that I was trying to solve. It was very similar use cases, and like these existing frameworks, they were designed in a time when the standard was to generate HTML on the backend and render it on the backend. But then now, and this was actually like 10 years ago or something, what was common was to build APIs and then a front end that communicates with those APIs or a mobile application or other tools. So I was trying to solve these things that are particularly specific to building APIs. That by the time it was already the most common use case, just like building APIs. I wanted to figure out the right way to solve the common problems for these things. One of those problems was having up-to-date documentation of the actual API and how it was built. So, for example, Django REST framework had a bunch of tools to generate documentation for the API that was built with it. Then after that, I realized that there was a way to use. It was called Swagger UI. Then Swagger API, and this was converted to Open API. It was renamed and then transferred the owner of the standard. The thing is, this was a way to define what is the shape of an API for the entire application, and it can be automatically generated from code. So I realized, okay, like I really want to have this. And then you will be able to have automatic user interfaces that are interactive with the API. And it's like, okay, I want to have that. Then I also discovered that there were some tools that could help and handle the data validation of the API to make sure that the data is correct all the time when you receive it, or generate the errors automatically when the data is incorrect. So I wanted to have that. But then there were like a bunch of things that started to pop up, and the list of things that I wanted to have kept growing. And in many cases, some of the problems were solved by different tools. So one tool will do data validation, the other one will do documentation, and this became like like a lot of duplication of the information. The code was not the same, so it was not duplication of code really, but the information was the same. It's like, oh, I'm gonna receive something that is a name and also a last name, and both are strings, and then the age is gonna be an integer. And the same applies for documentation, for serialization, for data validation. So I wanted to be able to have a way that could make it much more intuitive to work with. The first step was actually using Flask with a bunch of additional plugins on top. And that was like the closest I had to what I really wanted. But it was quite complex and fragile because it required a lot of decorators. It still required a bunch of code that was duplicated here and there. So I was working with a team of developers, and then like I would have like all this setup, and then like whenever someone else will need to build a new API, they will just like copy paste whatever is it that I had there, but not being able to understand and not being able to do it in an intuitive way. So I wanted to have something that was very intuitive and that people could, like the team that I was working with, could by default just write whatever was intuitive and it will work, and it will work by default with like good practices by default. That's what I wanted to achieve. I kept trying different frameworks, and then like the next application, it was like, okay, let's try with this different thing, and let's try to improve this in this different way. And I kept doing that for quite a while. And at some point, I found the framework that was closest to what I wanted, and it was like, okay, this is the closest that I'm gonna get. Maybe I can contribute the missing parts. But then the author decided that they had to stop working on that framework. So it was like, okay, this was the closest, and they just like closed it. So it's like, okay, I just have to try to do something. So that was the final push for me to just like try to build something. I always felt that there's probably some other framework that is already doing it. So I was trying all the frameworks. Once I figured that there was nothing else to try, it was like, okay, maybe it's worth building it. But then I thought like maybe someone else is trying to build it, but there didn't seem to be anyone else trying to build this same thing. So it was the point of, okay, let's just try it, try to build something. I was convinced that I was, yeah, sorry, one second. Yeah, I was convinced that I was probably mistaken in how I was thinking, and there was probably some error somewhere in the code or in my ideas. But still, I tried, and I tried to see and try to solve the problems that I had, and to solve these needs that I had for building APIs, and see where I could get. And it just kept working, and I just kept building it, and it just kept working. And then it just started to grow, and people realized that they also wanted this type of solution, and then it just kept growing like that. So I guess like the point is I didn't really think, oh, I want to build something new. The focus was not on building something new. The focus was on solving a problem that I already had. So I was first trying to figure out what is the right way to solve the problem. Once I figured there was no tool to do it, it was okay, let's build a tool to solve that problem. I was also convinced it wouldn't work, but it just kept working, so I just kept trying. Even if I thought that I was probably mistaken in some way, I just kept trying, and it kept working. So in the end, it worked, and it worked for me, and it worked for so many other developers. But the focus was, and this was one thing that I always say, the focus was, and what I think is important is that the focus is on solving a specific problem. And it's even better if the problem is important to you directly. So it's something that, like that what is the thing that needs to be solved, and you can know if the solution is useful or not. Then solving that specific problem, that is where the focus should be. That was a very long rant, but anyway. Wait, I think you're muted. I can't hear you. I can't hear you yet. Let me see, is there something with my headphones?
Hello?
I can hear you now. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, I was mute. Sorry. That is incredible, and it's definitely changed how we build, we write APIs today. And you actually solve a lot of problems, even including mine. So I've started Fast API 3 years ago with my mentor, who happened to be your friend. So now let's just move to cloud. So speaking of solving modern problem, you and your team, the Fast API Labs, you started recently a project like spoiler Fast API Cloud. So can you explain us simply what is Fast API Cloud and how can it help developers who is building with Fast API?
Yes. So Fast API itself is open source. It's free. You can just like use it for free and like use it however you want. You can when you build a Fast API application, it's just like running there in your laptop. But then when you want to expose it to your users, you have to deploy it somewhere. You have to put it in some remote server somehow, somewhere. There are many providers that can do this, but it's always a little bit of like extra complication and complexity of how to configure and how to do things to make sure that this is running in those different providers. FastAPI is based on standards and is open source, so you can run it wherever you want. But then the point was that I had, like I was able to teach people that were learning Python. They could go and learn FastAPI, and like in a week have an application that is pretty much production ready, but it was still only on the laptop. And then deploying that, it was so much extra work. I have a lot of documentation is still in the FastAPI docs for how you can deploy things on your own if you want, but it's still a lot of work and a lot of things that need to be taken care of and a lot of details that you have to do. So I wanted to have a simpler way for people to be able to just like deploy things to the cloud, and then we and like me and a team of very cool developers that we are working together, we can handle a bunch of the stuff that needs to be handled in the cloud and servers and like all the stuff, so that people can just like use FastAPI, focus on building applications, and then when they need to deploy, they can just run the command FastAPI deploy, and that's it. We handle all the rest. It just like happens automatically. So the idea was to make it super simple to get from the local application to deploying into the cloud, and to make it very easy. Like the focus is the same as with FastAPI. Solo developers, small startups, small teams, maybe small teams inside of corporations, but it's normally, like how FastAPI grew was because people were telling each other, hey, FastAPI is very cool, let's try to use it. And it just started spreading like that. So the same approach is what we are doing with FastAPI Cloud, is to try to make it super simple to build from the simplest applications to get them up and running very quickly. Like the idea is that it can handle a massive scale as well, because we take care of all that behind the scenes. The applications are scaled automatically based on requests, so you can just like focus on that. That is the idea. That is what we are building, and yeah.
Yeah, that like I can confirm that I had the same problem when I we started PyCon Togo. So we wanted to deploy. We built our website for last year, so we wanted to deploy on our server provider. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, they said that they are not accepting Fast API. So I was
Mm.
in that situation of converting Fast API to Flask before deploying it. So the day I saw your post saying that you code the cloud, and I said, "What? This is an incredible." And I'm so happy to be part of the first user of Fast API Cloud. So I now our website, our APIs are deployed on Fast API Cloud, and I can confirm that it's very, very, very incredible and very useful. So you can see logs. If you have a problem, you can see it directly as like in your terminal, and you know how to go and fix the problem directly instead of wasting time. So guys, you can go to there is like I'll just share the link with you. Just go and visit Fast API Cloud, and maybe you will be part of the beta user. So so excited for you. And thank you
Nice, thank you.
very much for your clarification. And now we want to move to community and global impact. So I did a lot of research about your skill. Like since I started Fast API, I was asking, okay, who built Fast API? So who is the guy behind of Fast API? So I said it's Sebastián Ramirez, and I went to your portfolio, your LinkedIn. I saw Coursera everywhere. So I'm like I was asking, is it a self-taught or I don't know, something like that? So that brings me to ask a question. So from someone who is like with atypical background, so which advice can you give to them to level up their level and start contributing to big open source project like yours?
Yep. So, okay, yes, I didn't go to university. I actually didn't go to formal school. I did study a lot, but it was not the formal traditional school and university. I was always studying from home, so I was homeschooling with my parents. At some point, I took a lot of online courses in Coursera, edX, Udacity, a bunch of different places. And they have a lot of courses from very very well known universities all around the world, and you can just like take them online. So I took a lot of those courses. That's how I learned a lot of the more deep knowledge on computer science and these things. Before that, I had already started learning how to program just online, just trying to set up the websites and the systems for my parents and for their small business, trying to set up a bunch of systems to try to help them with their business. It's funny because I built so many systems that were not really that useful to them because they were too complex. But I ended up learning a lot about how to build things and how to program and these things, which is also why I say that it's very useful and very important if you can focus on a problem that is important to yourself, because you will be able to see if the solution is actually useful or not. In my case, I was not solving a problem for me, I was solving a problem for my parents, and the solution that I came out with was not as useful to them. So, like in the end, I built so many complicated and sophisticated things that were not really that useful because the way that it worked was different. So if you can focus on a problem that is important for yourself, I think that helps a lot. And that's also my main tip for almost everything. It's not about it's not about being popular or creating a project that is famous, or not even necessarily about how to grow a specific community, or or go into a specific university or studying some specific things. I think the best focus is on solving a specific problem, solving a problem that is important to you. If you have a specific problem in mind, that helps align all the additional decisions that you have to make. Like, what are the things that you should study? You can just check, is this course, or is this tool that I am thinking, is it gonna help me get closer to solving that specific problem or not? If it's gonna help you, then it makes sense. If it's not gonna help you, then it's not necessarily that important. At the same time, I think it's very useful to just like learn things out of curiosity, and just because it's interesting to learn different tools and different things, so you can have more tools to apply to different problems. So that's also very useful. But if you are in the middle of not knowing exactly what to work on, what to focus on, I think a very good way to decide is figuring out if it helps you get closer to solving that specific problem. That was also what ended up helping me with FastAPI, and what ended up making it popular was that it was solving that specific problem. It's not that I was trying to make it popular. I was just trying to solve that specific problem. The other thing that I did with FastAPI is that I was also trying to write the code in a way that was very convenient for the final user. So I was optimizing for me as the final user, not for me as the maintainer of the library. In many cases, I ended up making the internal code a little bit more complex and difficult to manage, just so that it will be simpler for the final user. So having that in mind and trying to focus a lot on making the final experience for the final user, the thing that you are building, as intuitive and as easy as possible, that's actually very, very useful. The same with the documentation. I spent so much time writing documentation and trying to make it super simple and super intuitive and trying to explain everything gradually so that it will be easy for someone that is coming to the tool to actually learn it and be able to build things with the tool. When I was writing the documentation, I was thinking how I wished the documentation that I was learning when I was just getting started, how I wished it was written. I was trying to target, like myself when I was just getting started and just learning things. So having that in mind, that helped me to write the documentation in a way that is relatively easy to understand, and I think that also helped a lot because then people told each other, hey, this tool is cool and it's easy to learn. So then they ended up just like being able to share it and learn it very quickly and just like share it with each other. So I think that also helped. But again, my main advice, and I think the main thing that I always keep coming back to, is just focusing on a specific problem that is important to yourself.
Okay, thank you very much. And so I was listening to you. So guys, you hear from Sebastian. Solve problem. Always look around you, get which problem solved, and you will end up by making a big difference. So so we have a lot of questions in the chat comment section. So I will start taking some comment section, some questions before go around. So let me just display. So we have a first question from Adama. So he said he has a problem actually in my fast API cloud, and I want that to help me if he wants.
Yes. So I was reading the other comments by the same user that said, I deploy my app in FastAPI Cloud, but I don't have the right to look at what I build on it, but locally my app work. Cool. So maybe it's a little bit difficult to figure out what is happening with just the description, but I think something that we could do is if in your FastAPI Cloud dashboard, there's a link in the top right corner with the help options. From there, you can find the GitHub discussions where you can post the example of the app that you are building. What is the problem that you are seeing? What is the thing that you are seeing locally and the thing that you are seeing remotely? That way, one of our teammates will be able to see your specific problem and help you figure out how to solve it.
Okay, thank you very much. So I was trying to share my screen also, maybe to show him the. Okay, okay, we have another question from Sage Kudoro. So so the question
Okay.
is okay.
Yes, hello, very interesting. If you go back to your journey, what was your biggest challenge and the lesson learned for someone new? How did you succeed to grow a community? Any advice? So pay for FastAPI Cloud, don't you? Okay, so well, first, how did you succeed to grow a community? It was what I was saying, just like focusing on a specific problem. Like I was not really trying to grow a community. I was trying to solve a specific problem, and I was trying to solve it for myself when I was a kid, just learning these things. That ended up helping grow the tool because I was having that focus on solving a specific problem and making it easy for other developers to use it. That's the same thing that happened with Typer, and that is for building command line applications, not APIs, and for SQLModel. That is for interaction with relational databases, with SQL databases. For example, with SQLModel, I figured that I needed to explain why would you want to use a database, how would you use it, how do they work, how indexes work. So I ended up writing so much documentation. It becomes sort of a course on, or a tutorial or a guide on how to work with databases before even starting to write any code. I think that focus on trying to make it super simple, that helps a lot. Now coming back to the first question, if you go back to your journey, what was your biggest challenge and the lesson learned for someone new? I think something that worked quite well for me was that thing of just focusing on a problem and then taking as the first step trying to figure out what is any solution that is already existing. Because in many other cases where I found that there was a problem that I needed to solve, I just ended up searching and searching and finding a solution that was already there, and I could just use it. So I ended up learning a lot of different types of databases that can help for many different types of use cases. And in many cases, just using the tools that already exist there can help a lot because you don't have to reinvent everything all the time. I think that was one thing that was useful. But then for me, it was useful to just go and learn a bunch of different things from different tools to try to understand what were the best ideas that I could learn from them to then combine them together. One biggest challenge, I think there have been like many different challenges. I think one challenge was that I was quite convinced that I was wrong and that I was probably mistaken and that the ideas that I had were probably wrong in some different way, and that like if it was useful, there was probably someone somewhere else trying to build the thing, and like they were probably just like doing it and it didn't make sense for me to go and build it. But even though I was thinking that, I was still, I don't know, like just like keeping my mind silent and just trying not to think about that and trying to convince myself that it made sense to just try and build the thing and just like try to do it. Like there was nothing to lose. I could just like try and build it. So I think having that focus on just building something, it doesn't matter if others think that it's worth it or not, or it doesn't matter if I think that I'm probably mistaken, but it's specifically targeting at solving a problem that I discovered that was not solved yet, and it will be useful for me to solve. That was the main thing that I think was super important, and ended up being useful. But it's not that it's not that I have been building frameworks all my life or something like that. FastAPI was the first, the external package that I was building for other people to use, and it ended up working because it ended up solving the right problem. So I think that is a good focus to have.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. So thank you for your clarification, clarity, and we all take note of everything. So everything is around finding the problem, solving the problem, and try to solve it in the best way than it is. So I will drop the link in on the chat. So if you want to join the stage, so to ask the question on with voice, so you can join it also. So we have a last question. So I will take last question and wait for someone to join the stage.
Great. So what was the biggest technical challenge in creating FastAPI? There were several. One of the things was that I discovered that to make sure that it was compatible with all the tools I wanted it to be compatible with, it needed to be based on standards. And the standards were OpenAPI and JSON schema. And I was delaying that, but at some point I figured I just have to understand those standards. So learning those standards and studying the standards was, because they are not written in a way that is just like easy to read, they are quite dry. But still it was important to learn and understand how it all worked. OpenAPI, JSON schema, OAuth2. It was a lot of studying. It was, I guess, months of just like studying on and off before I even started writing any code for FastAPI. But before that, I needed to learn how all that worked underneath. That was one initial challenge, let's say. Then another challenge was when I was building the actual FastAPI. So before building FastAPI itself, I contributed to the packages that work underneath, to Starlet and to Pydantic. Some of the things, for example, Pydantic is a very sophisticated library that makes it very easy for the final user to use Pydantic, but the internal code of Pydantic was very complex because it needed to do so many things. Learning that code and trying to understand how to do it, that was a big challenge. That's at many points I was thinking to myself, like, why did I do this to myself? Why did I start just like trying to solve this? It's just like so complicated, and I'm not qualified to do this. But anyway, I just kept trying, and I kept trying to understand how it worked and trying to make the thing that I needed for to work, making it work. And just I kept just persisting on that. Fortunately, because in the end it helped, it worked, but it was definitely a big challenge. It was many things that were not even documented in how Python actually works underneath, and there was no way to learn from, like, like a tutorial or a book. It was just the source code there and just trying to understand how that works. But in the end, it worked well, so that was good.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have Jeffrey waiting on the backstage. So let me just put it on stage. Uh, Hello, Jeffrey.
Hey, hi, just supervising the backstage here and all the comments. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Sebastian, for joining us. We are really glad to hear your history about FastAPI and your background. That's very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Le- So I know that I said it was the last question, but I think I this question is interesting. So maybe we need
Yep.
to take it as a last question now.
Perfect. So, what is the difference between FastAPI and Flask? So, in Python, for quite a long time, there were two main frameworks, Django and Flask. Flask is a minimal framework. It's very small. It's very simple. And it was the main framework that was used for building the things, many of the things that are built with FastAPI now, because it was very simple, very easy to get started with. But still, Flask was designed, like in the time before APIs were the main use case. So it had some tools built on top of Flask to be able to work with APIs, but it was not the default use case. In FastAPI, I learned a lot from Flask, and the way that you write the code is actually quite similar. It's just that in FastAPI, you declare a couple of additional things to get data validation. So the data that you receive in the API, when you receive a JSON body with a bunch of data, the data is validated automatically. So you know that the data is always correct. And it also gets automatic documentation for the API. So you can also open the browser and then interact with the API directly from the browser, and it does like all the data documentation automatically. So for example, let's say that you create a tool to register students, and then each student is going to have a name and is going to have the scholarship level that is receiving and it's going to have the event that is going. Maybe it's PyCon Togo, maybe it's a different event. But then if you build this, when you receive a new request, you have to check if the data that you have is correct, if the name is correct, if it's actually a string, not that you receive in the name and it's actually a list of numbers. It will break the application. So with FastAPI, using Pydantic, you declare what is the shape of the data that you want to receive, and then it validates that automatically. And it also documents that automatically. So you create the app, and then you go to /docs, and then it shows an interactive user interface where you can interact with your own API using this same data that you define. If you have worked with Flask, it's very easy and very quick to get the hang of FastAPI, because FastAPI got a lot of inspiration from Flask. The decorators are very similar, things like that. You can, if you are curious about FastAPI, you can just check the main page on the main docs, only that one. Just with that one, it will take you, I don't know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. That is enough for you to know how it works and if you like it or not. And then after that, you can just read the entire tutorial. Like the guide, the documentation is written as a tutorial, as a book. So you can learn everything in a way that is guiding you step by step. But to be able to make up your mind if you like it or not, you can just like check the main page, the main docs, just try that, and that is enough for you to understand what is it that FastAPI gives you and if you like it or not.
Thank you very much. And I think this is our last question. To be honest, I didn't see the time flying. So now we always know when having a great conversation, time flies like I don't know how to qualify it, but uh, we are at the end of the conversation. So I don't want to say we are. I don't want to wrap up, but we have to do so because we have something to do. And Sebastian, thank you very much. This is a very, very big difference you made by coming to our Road to PyCon session. And thank you, the audience, for coming. Thank you for asking questions. If you have more questions, comment under the video. So I hope if Sebastian have some time, he can answer and I will drop it in the community. And don't forget that we are running our crowdfunding campaign to help a lot of students around the country to come to our main conference. And bye bye, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And folks that are watching, don't forget to donate. You can help a lot of students around the local community to come and get together, to to learn together, and to be together joining at PyCon Togo. Thank you very much for inviting me. Have a good rest of the day. Bye bye.